content covered may be graphic in nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Witchcraft. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely it's really
just. I love stories like this because it's
you can just be scared to death. Yeah, that's a real thing. There are countless stories bad enough that
you shouldn't fuck with.
Right, and the JFK assassination limo. Real.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. From the Mistake on the Lake, deep within the Great American Rust Belt, I bid you all good morning, good evening, wherever you are listening over the interwebs. This is T3TV. I'm your host, John Budzinski, alongside Steve Buddha Gibson.
Sup?
And in the guest host seat tonight, my brother, Alex Badzinski.
Hello, hello.
And also co-piloting tonight, our good friend, Patrick Barron. Pat.
Hey, everybody.
All right. Pat, why don't you give us a little, let's see, I know you through my brother, and obviously, so this will be interesting having both of you guys on here tonight, but you guys have known each other for a while, and you're a pretty smart guy. You got a degree in what, biology?
Yeah. Yeah, degree in biology, master's in business, I guess.
And so,
But
what
I
made
didn't realize
you
put me on the hot?
Well, yeah, no, that's the
Sorry,
that's
go
the
on.
point. What's the what made you decide biology?
I like critters, man. I like little animals and stuff. I've always been big into like outdoors, wildlife, fisheries, that kind of stuff, and got into, I guess, medical science on accident, but ended up being a happy accident. Working in biotech now, pretty much love what I do. So
Great. And so yet another smarter than person smarter than the hosts on the show. So
That's what keeps it going.
right, my ignorance equals I don't know where I'm going. How you guys doing this week? Anything crazy happening in your life, in your world, Buddha?
I am excited because it was only 70 degrees.
Did you work outside
That's-
or inside?
I've been outside for the last couple weeks, and it has just been fucking murder.
Yeah. Well, I know it was pretty muggy the other day, but I noticed like driving home yesterday, I was like, man, it is really nice out. So that's good.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
You know what sucks is like that initial buildup of heat around your body before you start sweating. Like when I go to the gym, it's always like the most uncomfortable thing until like I actually start having a sweat, and then I feel more comfortable. So I don't know, like I feel like if I was outdoors like that all day, eventually I'd get comfortable, but you know.
Yeah.
Well,
My
my problem is that initial buildup of heat is just my body's like natural operating temperature. So I'm just like constantly fucking having hot flashes.
Oh,
maybe it's menopause, Buddha.
Could be. Could be cancer. I don't know.
all right. Well, obviously in major news this week, space is getting more privatized, and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos went into space this week. I think it's a good thing. I don't know what you guys think. I mean, obviously there's a lot of jokes about the shape of the rocket and Dr. Evil comparisons out there, but I think it's a good thing. It's good for not only the economy, but it's also going to drive costs of going into space down because it's going to be a competitive market. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Competitive for who? I mean,
Right?
like,
Well,
so far it's been people sponsored by NASA, you know, and the federal government, and then billionaires that have money to piss away. Like,
it starts.
I would never.
Well, no, it starts there, but if you think about it, like now that space, before putting a satellite in orbit, it cost a ton of money, and it was done through the government and NASA. And now with companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin and being privatized, it's going to put competition to get the resources and the infrastructure to make these things happen a lot, maybe more affordable. And so, I mean, it's not just putting people up there and leisurely space travel. I think it's also going to help. I mean, they're even talking about like what happens where there's processes that in manufacturing that create like some sort of waste that is just really bad for the environment. Well, now they're going to be able to say, okay, well, we can just shoot it out into space. And so I think things like that.
Go ahead, Pat.
I do think that we're gonna start seeing a huge influx of celebrities, millionaires that are going into outer space. I think that space travel for the common man is still a very, very, very far distant pipe dream. And I think that in the next 10 years, we're going to see big trends of, major celebrities. We're going to see Leonardo DiCaprio going into outer space and shit like that.
Lance Bass.
Lance Bass in outer space. I really don't see this benefiting common people.
Not even with the infrastructure. I mean, I'm like I said,
No, because you see it, especially on Reddit all the time, like models of space or like debris that we've put into orbit, like already, like just crazy the amount of dead satellites and like junk that's already up there.
Yeah.
Like to think that you're going to jettison some radioactive material that's bad for the environment, like into where? Like already into the debris field, waiting to become a meteorite to hit the Earth?
No.
I don't think, like Pat said, within our lifetime, the common man's going to be able to benefit from it, and I don't think, like...
Okay, but what do you think about 2-3 generations from now?
I don't care for 2-3. I'll be long dead by then. And like, what is it going to matter to me?
All right.
Another thing.
I personally...
sorry, go on.
No, I personally think that all of the people that want to go to space, like all the celebrities and shit, should just take a one-way trip because they're literally doing nothing for society. That's just me throwing that out there.
Agreed. But I was going to say another thing to take into consideration is the liability of it. What happens to Jeff Bezos if Amazon sends a rocket into outer space and there's some major malfunction? I mean, there's obviously waivers to a large degree, but
yeah,
if there's some kind of defect with the rocket itself,
well,
I would think that a legal waiver would not cover that. So that would could potentially bankrupt a company like Amazon that's worth billions and billions.
Yeah, you make a good point too. Like, as far as like, I know that they had been working on patenting drone delivery, and so. That airspace being pretty much, I mean, you can fly a drone right now recreationally, and you still need a license for it, but commercially you need an additional or higher license, I guess, be lack of better words. But like, think about if like they started doing deliveries via drone, like how much air traffic there is there, and the liability still, like, what happens if one of those things falls out of the sky and hits somebody walking their dog or something? You make a good point. So
beyond just that, I mean, think about the notion. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, Al, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, think about the line from Fight Club when he says, like, talking about how, when space exploration becomes a thing, it's not going to be the people that name it. It'll be the major corporations. Yeah. You'll have the Starbucks Planet, Microsoft Galaxy. Like, everything will be stripped from the man, like the common man.
That's a good point.
What was that movie? What was that movie where basically a civilization living in orbit around the planet, and it was all the wealthy people, and then all the poor people were stuck planet side and scrounging for food? It was like, I think it was a Matt Damon movie. No. I think it was
Total
Elysium
Recall took place
like
on
that.
Mars, didn't it?
Yeah.
The
I think it was Elysium.
Oh,
so like all the wealthy people escaped into space, and then Yeah, the poor people were just stuck on the shithole planet left behind from
I
all
watched
the corporate greed.
Movie similar. I watched The Island, not knowing what the plot was, and that like hit me out of nowhere. I thought that was pretty clever. But
Which one? Because there's two.
though I think it's a Michael Bay movie or a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. The one with the.
If it's with Ewan McGregor and Scarlett Johansson, that's Michael Bay.
Yeah, I didn't mind that movie. But anyway, all right. So in other news this week, looks like Hubble definitely got. I know we've been following this for a couple of weeks here, but Hubble was revived. It says NASA has just provided new images from the iconic Hubble telescope. And simply put, they're absolutely stunning. Hubble captured countless images over the last 31 years that it's been in operation. And so, yeah, some of these photos of some galaxies out there. The above photos are gorgeous enough without any explanation, but diving a bit deeper into them reveals just how fascinating they are. Taking a look at the image is a picture of a galaxy ARP Madore 2115-273. And it's, I mean, these things look like paintings or like they were built on a computer, like a Photoshop or something. And it's amazing to think that, like, well, this is actually a real place. So. But I'm glad they got it back up and running. So,
do you guys know anything about the James Webb telescope that they're planning to launch here in the somewhat near future? I think it's supposed to be significantly more advanced than the Hubble telescope.
Gary, my buddy from Pennsylvania that's been on here a couple times, he's mentioned it, but do you know anything on there that I mean, he didn't really touch upon. He just said the name and that they were putting out another one. So
yeah, they've been talking about putting it out for, I want to say, the better part of 10, 15 years now. I could be wrong on that. I don't really know a ton about it. I just know that it's still, I guess, in production, so to speak. I'm not sure if they actually have a launch date for it, but it's I don't know, it's supposed to put the Hubble to shame.
I mean, that's going to be hard to do, but then again, I mean, we're talking about 30-year-old technology. So let's see here. This other story, this one's kind of interesting. It's off of UPI.com. Possible Michelangelo fingerprint found on statue. What might be Michelangelo's thumbprint has been found on a small wax statue that he created 500 years ago. Museum experts at London's Victoria and Albert Museum found a mark pressed onto the dark red figurine, which was a sketch for a larger unfinished marble sculpture. Titled "A Slave," the figurine depicted a naked figure with an arm across its face. Was part of the Renaissance master's preparation for Pope Julius II elaborate tomb in Rome. But it's just crazy that to think that like a fingerprint's been preserved for 500 plus years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you could go. I'm not sure what city it's in. It might be in Florence, but there's actually Michelangelo's like actual death mask that was made from plaster on his face after he died. So I mean,
oh really?
Thumbprint. Yeah, I mean, thumbprint's pretty cool, but you can go look at Michelangelo's death mask.
Yeah. Cool.
The Ninja Turtle, right? That's what we're still talking about?
Yeah.
Yes, the Ninja Turtle.
Pizza.
Pizza.
I don't know. Go ahead.
What? No, I was just to Buddha's comment, it's slightly off topic, but Sideshow Collectibles is doing its Sideshow Con this week, and they revealed from this company, PCS Collectibles, a Ninja Turtles statue called like The Last Ronin, and it's from a storyline in the comics, one of the first time Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman teamed up again on the book. It's a more recent story, but it's basically Raphael, Leonardo, and Donatello have been killed by like the nephew of Shredder. It takes place in the future, and Angelo is like the last of the Ninja Turtles, and he's basically, like a samurai without a cause. And it's an awesome story, but the statue looks absolutely incredible, and it has Michelangelo like with all the weapons of the turtles, and then in the back they've like sculpted like ghost versions of the other three. I'll send you a picture of it later.
I'll see if I can pull it up right now. It's by Sideshow?
No, it's by PCS Collectibles. They may have pictures on their website of it, though.
Yeah, I'll try to find a picture of it real quick. No, yeah, I'll send it over because I do want to see that. It sounds cool. All right. In other news, this one's kind of a weird story, kind of some filler material. I do actually have a subject that I wanted to talk about tonight, a little later, but for those of you that are fans of macaroni and cheese, there's now a macaroni and cheese flavored ice cream. Brooklyn-based Van Leeuwen Ice Cream churned out the cheesiness of Kraft macaroni and cheese into their ice cream to create the Kraft macaroni and cheese flavored ice cream, according to a Kraft Heinz company statement. Kind of gross. I would not eat that, but weird in itself.
I'd try it.
You try it? Yeah.
I mean,
I just
go ahead, Buddha.
I don't understand why people eat things that aren't the things and then flavor them like something else. Like that just, it boggles my mind. If you want to eat that thing, just fucking eat that thing.
Like taco pizza?
No, I mean, like, why do I want to buy potato chips that are flavored like something that's not potato chips? Like I don't
the tiki
understand
masala
that.
potato chips?
I don't know what that means. What is that?
It's an Indian dish, but Lay's made a tiki masala. They're pretty good.
Like pickle flavored potato chips.
Just eat a
some
pickle?
fucking pickles. Yes.
But what if you don't want a pickle? What if you're looking for
potato chip?
You can't even say
a fucking potato chip.
Yeah, you can't even say crunchy because pickles are crunchy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're also not. I mean, they're crunchy on the outside, soft on the inside. If you're looking for something crunchy all the way through, you're gonna go potato chip.
They had didn't they also have like garlic bread flavored potato chips too?
Oh, they have all kinds of goofy shit. Not even just potato chips, just food in general.
I bought some Korean barbecue potato chips the other day, and they're fantastic, but they just taste like every other barbecue potato chip. There's like nothing to distinguish them as Korean barbecue chips.
Huh.
See, but that's just a flavor. Like, that makes sense because you're, like, seasoning it a specific way. It's not like you said, I want these potatoes to taste like fucking turnips. I don't know. Whatever the fuck people eat.
I don't even know what a turnip tastes like.
I've never had, yeah. Isn't it like a beet?
I don't fucking know, man.
Well, you're the one that you're limited to meat and vegetables. I thought you would have known.
No.
Dude, we went to Bamba on Saturday. Dude, that place is so good.
Yeah, we go there pretty... That's like one of our in the regular rotation.
Yeah. Dude, I had one of those Nashville Nashville chicken tacos.
Nashville Heredia.
Dude, I mean, the sweat was beading off my scalp.
Rob.
Seriously.
That sounds miserable.
I mean, I like hot food, so... But I just picture, because Dan did not like that place at all. But I was, blown away that he did not order that taco. I think if he had that, he would like that place. So.
No, Dan just likes cheap shit.
Oh. All right.
Except shoes. Not his shoes, though.
Well,
but anyway.
To his defense, he did get those on a discount. All right, so I want to also hit real quick on we talked about this missing Hoover woman from last week, and this is Hoover, Alabama. She has still not been found, so we're going on 4 weeks now of this woman being missing. So we'll keep reporting on that. You remember that?
Unfortunate. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, dude,
that was
4
when we
weeks.
Started talking, dude. That's so like commonplace though. Like there's just think about it, like 330 340 million people in the US alone. The amount of them that go missing that are never heard from again is not really uncommon.
I was listening to Shapiro yesterday on my way home from work, and he was breaking down death statistics for like 2019, and like what the top ones in the US were, and heart disease and cancer are always on like the top few, but it was interesting to hear like how low some of the deaths were, like accidental deaths. And it's like, how long before they rule like this woman, like if she doesn't end up, like eventually what do? Just do they say that she's passed away? Do they pronounce, at what point do they determine that she's not alive anymore, since they haven't found her?
I don't know that there's like a specific cutoff point. I think it's generally once they stop a search, they just kind of leave it open.
Yeah, I just didn't know, like, because when do they? I've heard before, like, they'll presume someone dead, and that's when like a family has a funeral. I hope this woman's not dead, but it is kind of weird.
I read up on the story a little bit, and apparently, like, she was the last seen getting into like a rideshare car. So
right.
I think there is a possibility that, she's like that. What was that creep in Cleveland that kidnapped those little girls?
Castro?
Castro, yeah. Ariel Castro, like something like that, where, she's just held captive somewhere. But, I mean, I think the further out it gets, the less the likelihood of her, still being alive, as unfortunate as that is to say.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about that last week, too. I mean, Gina DeJesus's mom went on, I forget which talk show, but Sylvia Brown said that she was dead and was like taken to Japan or something as part of human trafficking, which just goes to show what Sylvia Brown really was. But the fact that like these people were, this was common news. Every year they would touch on that story, and then they just ended up showing up. And one of the few times you ever hear somebody showing up, turning up alive.
So there was a situation when I was in college. A girl that actually went to my school. She was a year younger than me. I didn't know her too well, but she was the roommate of a pretty good friend of mine. And she went home on Thanksgiving break to visit her family and just went missing. They pretty much launched like a huge manhunt and found that her ex-boyfriend had actually like kidnapped her and murdered her and dumped her in some nearby woods. They ended up finding her body.
Whoa. Wait, yeah, you knew this person?
Like I said, I didn't know her well. I was very good friends, actually still am, good friends with her roommate at the time.
Whoa. So like, but you were acquainted at least, like you had come across this person face to face.
Yeah. Like we would, I could refer to her by name and she would refer back to me by name, but that was about as far as it went.
Man, that's
one of
crazy.
those high friends.
Yeah. Wow.
Dude, this is probably 9 years ago. When we were playing out, we played with this band and, whatever, like they were cool guys. It was fine. And then a couple of years after we played with them, it's probably about 8 years ago, the bass player's girlfriend is like missing and they can't find her. And it turns out that he actually murdered her. He like stabbed her, killed her, and then took her phone and was like replying to messages that he sent to her to make it seem like she was still alive. And yeah, it's kind of really fucked up. He went through
Which
like
band
this whole
was that?
The Death Rats.
Oh yeah. Didn't they play with you guys at the Grove?
No, we played with them in Defiance. And
yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Bowling Green, I think. I don't remember. I think we met them in Bowling Green, but it was it was pretty wild because it was like all over the news and stuff. And not like I was like friends with the dude. Like I didn't really know him, but it was just kind of wild to be like, man, we just we played with those guys not too long ago, and here it is, like this dude's on the news, and the amount of like thought that actually goes into it after the fact. Like it clearly wasn't like a crime of passion, as they say, because he tried to cover it up for a couple days by responding to his own messages, making it seem like she was still alive, playing along like, where is she? You know, I don't know where she is, blah, 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 like that kind of shit.
And that's funny
also,
that you mentioned that, because that story that I just told about that girl, her boyfriend kind of did the same thing, where he took her phone and was like responding to family and basically trying to live on with the charade. I mean, the manhunt went on for like 3 days.
wow.
It was national news. It was a big story.
What happened to those two guys?
Who?
Are they both in jail? I mean, sometimes, you know, the people...
Yeah, that one dude's in prison.
Yeah, I know sometimes people will end up just turning the gun on themselves before they go to jail.
He's in prison.
Wow.
And yeah, the guy from my story's in prison also.
Wow.
John,
Oh.
do you remember, without naming any names, do you remember, I don't remember if it was when we were in high school or if it was right after high school. There was a chick that we went to school with that was like being investigated for murder because her boyfriend, quote unquote, fell off of like some fucking cliff in the park. It might have been at the Ledges. I don't remember. I think it was at the Ledges where he like, you know, fell and died and she was the last one to see him. Do you remember any of that?
Who's the person that died? Did we know them?
I don't remember his name. No,
No.
we knew the chick.
Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, it doesn't ring a bell, but again,
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
yeah. Wow. All right, last one here out of like the news that I was interested in talking about tonight. Al, you had mentioned this to me, I think it was over the weekend or something, but that potentially EA was going to remake Dead Space, and boy, oh boy, you were correct. I just saw today that they released a teaser for this, and holy shit, this looks amazing. And I can't freaking wait.
Yeah, no, obviously there's a clamoring for next gen console games, and most people want to go back and play the old ones. I mean, the Mass Effect Legendary Edition sold extremely well, so I'm not surprised that they're doing that game now.
I love
Is it
that
going
game.
to be? Is it going to be a remake, a remaster, a sequel?
It's a remake from the ground up, just like they did for Resident Evil.
Okay.
Did you play Resident Evil 2 remake?
No.
Oh man, Buddha, I loved every second of it. The one thing I was kind of iffy about at first was the over the shoulder and how the cameras weren't fixed. But I mean, dude, they crushed it. And like I've played that game so many times. I even like 3. I know Buddha, you didn't really care for it, but I've beat 3 pretty much on every mode. But yeah, this I am super excited for. At first, I didn't play this game when it first came out. I actually waited a couple of years, and I got it for like $15 or something on sale. And I was like, I can't believe I didn't play this game any sooner.
Yeah, the first time I played it, it had been out like a month, and on Black Friday, they had dropped the price to like $25 for whatever strange reason, and I didn't know what it was. I just bought it based on the cover because it was just a hand floating in space, and I was like, oh, okay. And I think it was Friday. Like it, you know, I had already went through the day and slept all day, and it was probably about 2 a.m. And not knowing what the game was, I popped it in. I was sitting in the dark by myself, just like having panic attacks because that first one was so suspenseful and scary, and just the shit that would pop out or not pop out.
Yeah,
So good.
the second one was good too. I played the first one all the way through about a month before the second one came out, so luckily I didn't have to wait for the sequel. And the third one was okay, but I liked how like the second one was more action packed versus more horror, but yeah, I can't wait. Like have you seen any of the screenshots from this yet?
No, I wasn't on the internet much today, but I did. However, they made a whole documentary about like the production of that game and like the guy who created it and stuff. kind of similar to the Borderlands story where they had developed a game and it started to look like every other like game and first-person shooter. And same with Dead Space, they were developing it, and the guy had these big, bold ideas, and a lot of the time they would get through a point in production, and then they'd have to go back and change everything just because they came up with a better idea. I guess it was like a huge timeline for like the production of it, but obviously it came out in the end like fantastic, and that guy was patting himself on the back for his great ideas, and people actually believing in him.
Dude,
Let's just change the skin of the elves so they're a different color. Nobody will know the difference.
Boo, did you ever
Don't
play
get me
Dead
wrong.
Space?
I always get that game confused with another
BioShock?
space game. No, not BioShock.
I always get those
it's-
two mixed up.
It's kind of like Killzone, but it wasn't Killzone. It was something same time frame it came out. I don't remember what it is, but I'm looking at it right now. I don't think I've ever played Dead Space.
Dude, it's so good. Like, I recommend you play it, because if you like old school survival horror games, this one is pretty damn good. And just like, if you like some of that upgrading and leveling up stuff, like, and having like a workbench to kind of tailor your weapons to like fight that part, like I never really got into in other games, but I think they did it in a very clever way, and holy shit, like, I mean, just a great game. So I'm stoked. Like, couldn't have come on a better day. So
What
It's not
was-
like
what-
Dead Island.
what a turd.
What was the game where you're like kind of in space, but like the main protagonist or antagonist is it's like a little girl, but she's like super crazy, like she's not like a ghost, she's kind of like a ghost.
I thought that
Is
was Biohazard or whatever.
BioShock?
Bioshock.
No, it's not BioShock. That's the one when you're like 1950s underwater. I don't know if it's 50s, I think it's earlier than that, but you're like underwater, and then you're in like the I recently played the last couple all the BioShocks over again within like the last 2 years.
You know what I'm surprised they haven't they never did a sequel for Rockstar was LA Noire. I thought that was a pretty good game.
It had
I mean-
super mixed reviews.
The game functionally was so far ahead of its time with the motion capping and like using real actors to have the dialogues and the conversations, and like making the player really have to test their mettle as a detective and really like watch for facial tics and things like that when they
Right.
question the person. I don't foresee them coming back to it. I mean, because they still aren't releasing GTA 6, but that LA Noire and Bully are like, I think, the two that people most clamor for, and like I think State of Emergency.
Aren't they making a Bully too?
No.
No.
And
I
Buddha,
forgot
is
about
that-
State
is
of
that game? Is that game with the little girl? Is it Fear?
Yeah, that's what it was. That I always get that game and Dead Space confused. Fear was awesome.
Yeah.
I barely remember it. But
Dude,
I
LA
don't know. I think
Noire
like this conversation
was-
kind of.
Go ahead, Pat.
I was going to change the subject here to related, but
No, go
different.
for it.
So go on, Buddha. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's just real
I was
quick. I was
just
just
going
gonna
to say,
say
it kind
like
of brings
LA.
up another.
Oh god damn! All right, you go ahead. I don't really have anything to add that we haven't really talked about.
Buddha's
you go
been
ahead, Pat.
all right. So, like, long story short, Buddha's been on me about like getting like some sort of webcam thing going so that we can see each other when we go to talk. But I can't. My computer is like, I mean, I'm pushing the limit here, and Buddha was like, "Well, why don't we just use your iPad or something?" And so, didn't think about that until tonight. But yeah, we definitely need to figure out something because it just turns into a mess, and then it just grinds everything to a screeching halt.
Rabble, 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 rabble.
Yeah, but go ahead, Pat.
I was gonna say it's just a kind of something that has been on my mind lately in regards to video games is there's really no new IP. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm excited for a new Dead Space, and the Mass Effect remake is awesome. However, nobody is developing new IP anymore. It's like game companies, game developers are scared to kind of make that investment for an uncertain return. And it's not just video games, we're seeing it with movies too. Everything's either getting a remake, a reboot, a rehash, like done with different characters. And it's like it seems like we are at an anti-renaissance right now in terms of like art and media. Everything is just a rehash of shit that has already been done, that has been proven successful, and nobody wants to invest in unproven ideas.
Well, I think part of that too is just the state of like art and shit in general. Like I don't buy comics as much anymore, just for the fact that like people try to push their own ideas in a book that's a funny book about a guy flying around in his underwear, and like it makes it less interesting, and there's nobody really making the choice to, like you said, put an IP out that may be thought-provoking or anything like that. I mean, you look at what PS3 and like Xbox 360 had, like you had that Uncharted series, Naughty Dog took the shot on that, and then like The Last of Us. All the previous generation games still hold so much value to people, and because people are, I mean, look at the backlash with The Last of Us 2. Like people condemn that game for the ridiculousness of the ending, and you're not going to win because people, if they don't like the idea, will use their voice to just trash it until it's buried.
Well, what about that game, like that new game Bethesda's got coming out, Starfield? Like that's going to be new. There's a lot of buzz about that, and like that, it's when you're looking at like The Last of Us 2, that is an established story, an established series that people have been making, for lack of a better term, fan fiction about it for the last decade. I think it came out in 2013 or something like that, maybe even sooner.
First one,
but
yeah,
but when you're talking about like brand new IP, a brand new idea, Starfield, which don't even get me started on how pissed off I am that Microsoft bought Bethesda, so it's only releasing on Xbox. But like that's a good example of something that's got a lot of hype, people are excited for, and I don't know, I don't know.
You're not wrong. I mean, like, you look at Cyberpunk, like, obviously it's already built in a world that was, a tabletop game and had fiction and stuff, but, like, an original IP to something new to the video gaming industry. I think the other thing that's killing it is that games are being released with, half finished. Like, I mean, look at most of the games that have come out so far for PS5, that Outriders got trashed because it was so unfinished, but it was a new IP. I think like one of the few successful ones was that Returnal. Like it's a single player game.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah. And they put it out because it needed to be finished because there's no multiplayer to it. It's just you playing a story. So I think what's hurting most games is if they're trying to push multiplayer or like connectivity with your friends, they feel like they can just half-ass everything through it, and then once it's got an established player base, that's where they can invest into it.
Not everything needs to be multiplayer.
I think you and I have actually had that conversation.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, how many multiplayer games do they need to make? Like Dead Space 3 or 2. I don't know if it was 2 or 3. They had a multiplayer on there. It's like, I'll never play that, and it always sucks. Like when the story portion of a game is really good, the multiplayer is shit. And then you've got like, there have been a few cases, like I think Call of Duty 2, where it was like both the multiplayer and the story was awesome. But I mean, very few and far between. I can't think of a game where, I mean, maybe Grand Theft Auto.
GTA 5.
But I mean, think about that. It's been GTA 5 for almost 10 years now?
Well, longer than that.
When did it come out? Did it come out on PS3 or PS4?
PS3.
It was, yeah.
I got that game for 3 generations.
Yeah, think about that. But it's still good. I mean, even the tuner stuff that they just put out this week, like, is fun and interesting and, like, revives a portion of the game that wasn't, like, being utilized for so long. Because, I mean, the heists are phenomenal, and it's, like, it puts you in a situation that, like, you normally wouldn't find yourself in. But, like, the new tuners thing, those missions are back at the core of, like, getting in a car, going to steal something, and driving back and, like, evading the police. And, like, I mean, I had fun with those new ones. I mean, they were short, like, with the setups, but the post stuff was pretty cool. And it fixed, like, did quick fixes for, like, the issues that you had with the other ones. Like, what was the Doomsday heist? That was 5 or 6 setup missions that took forever to get to the heist with, like, barely any payout. And then you got Cayo Perico and the Diamond Casino, where you can do those pretty quickly and then pick your way of how you want to enter it. I mean, that we did all 3 of the Diamond Casino ones, guns blazing, sneaking in, you know, like, stealthily, and then, like, the straight walk-in one. And each one was unique and fun to play.
Yeah, I've only done a couple of them, but they are really fun. All right.
Yeah, and I think what's good about Grand Theft Auto is the constant updates, but that's also the problem with other games, is because you have the high-speed internet capabilities. It's I think you said it earlier, Al, these game companies are just dumping out half-finished piles of shit, and we'll just, fuck it, we'll patch it later, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they're doing that with OSs on phones and computers, too. I mean, it's like how many times, like, with all my photography and, like, graphic arts software, I'm not going to download any. I mean, Buddha, how many times we talk about, like, don't download the latest OS for Pro Tools, because the minute you do that, nothing's going to fucking work anymore.
Oh, dude, I'm in this one group, a Pro Tools group, and, like, every day there is just countless people making posts like, just upgraded to Big Sur, or just got an M1, why isn't this working? And it's like, did you check the fucking compatibility? Like, why do people buy shit without checking compatibility? It's fucking 2021. Computers aren't new.
Yeah, well, the guy at work, his edit computer was Windows 7, and he turned it on the other day, and Creative Cloud is no longer supporting Windows 7, so he's pretty much screwed until he gets a new computer. And like, I know Windows 7 is, like, I think they said it was, like, highly susceptible to hacks and viruses, and that's why they wanted to get rid of it so quickly. But he doesn't do anything with the internet on it except, you know, use the applications, and now it's just done being supported because, you know, Creative Cloud or Adobe wants to just be done with it.
Yeah. All right, Buddha. I'm going to pivot over. I got your pictures pulled up here. You want to get into your story for this week?
So this is the one that I was talking about last week, and it's actually pretty short. So this is basically just about, sorry, I lost that page. Per usual, every time I think I'm ready, I'm not.
All right.
All right, so this is basically, yes. Thank you, John, for that. No, it's basically just a picture of a girl that was a supposed apparition, where when a town hall was being destroyed by a fire, which is called The Mystery of the Wem Ghost. And it's because, fuck, man, I'm fucking this all up. I'm sorry. I had something else prepared, and then you kind of threw this at me.
I'm sorry.
So,
well,
anyway.
I mean, we'll go.
Well, no, it's fine. It's fine, because this is only going to take like a minute.
All right.
So at the Wem Town Hall in November of 1995, there was a fire, and there's photos taken from this fire, and it shows that
1995,
like a little girl. What's that?
You said 1995?
That's what the fucking article says.
I was going to say these pictures look like they're from like 1895.
Well, it says here, 1995, the ghost image created international headlines.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I understand now. Go ahead. I apologize.
You're fucking me up, John, even more.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well,
Sorry.
anyway, I guess I'm just going to throw this out there. So this is a picture of a girl that was taken at a fire at this Wem Town Hall. And you can see, I don't know if the pictures are up yet, John, because of that delay.
Well, which number do you want me to go to first?
I don't remember the order that I sent them in. You can just use the one where it's literally just over the railing. Either one of those would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I sent you all of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much this is supposed to be an apparition that was that was pictured during a fire. And this whole story kind of just went to shit.
Yeah. No, it didn't. Keep going.
It kind of did.
So it's a picture of a ghost. Obviously, I'm zooming in here. Whoa. Well, too big there. All right.
Let's see. I don't know. Let's just fucking wash this because I'm all fucked up. Yeah.
Some of the
All right.
I fucking clicked the wrong thing. God damn
yeah, I
it.
see that.
Oh boy, hold on a second.
It's supposed to be a picture of what was an apparition, but then everybody was kind of like, no, or yeah, it's totally real. It's a real photo. And then it turns out that some random fucking guy came across a postcard from like 1922.
Yeah.
And that's allegedly the girl from the 1922 postcard that was supposedly like photoshopped into this picture. So there's a bunch of people that say, yeah, it's fake. And there's a bunch of people that say, no, that's just a fucking coincidence.
I mean, it definitely looks like a little girl in the picture. And I see what you're saying here where the girl shows up in the picture on the postcard. And that's where I was like, okay, well, is this from like the 1890s or what?
Yeah.
I probably should have asked this before we started doing this, but how can I see what you guys are looking at?
He'll throw it up on there's like a little bit of a delay since everything's streamed. So if you actually watch the YouTube stream, it'll come up on there.
Eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, fuck that on up good this week.
All right, well, let's segue into something else that's a little less fucked up. Have you guys ever heard of the My Way killings?
No.
So you know the song, like My Way, like the Frank Sinatra song?
There was two. There's that one and the one from Limp Bizkit.
Oh, God damn it. Oh, well, then let's talk about the Limp Bizkit one, which is the far superior.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me get my fucking red hat for this.
Dude.
No.
All right. 8th grade, me and your bro and like 5 other people used to rock the red hat.
I do remember that. I did not.
I know. You didn't. You had short hair back then.
I did.
Yeah.
It's like shaved head.
Yeah.
So this isn't really much. There's like no crazy like build up to this story. It's just that from about 2002 to 2012, there was like a slew of random fucking murders and killings to people that would perform this song like karaoke in the Philippines. There was just a ton of people that were getting murdered for singing this song. And it literally got to the point where it was outlawed. You're not allowed to do it anymore because so many people were dying from it. And it was everything from like people that were just patrons who would just get up and fucking murder people, or bouncers that would get into it with people, would end up killing them. And they said like which it was supposed to be like kind of insulting, but based on like the society and just the cultural beliefs and just like everyone supposedly acting, what is it called? Machismo, just macho. Yep. And they said that was the reason this was happening, but it was kind of like a 10-year streak where a bunch of people were just getting fucking murdered for karaokeing this song. And like right here, in the decade up to 2010, about a half dozen incidents occurred in the Philippines in connections with strenuous complaints over the singing of the song, prompting Filipino newspapers to name the phenomenon the My Way killings. May 29th, 2007, a 29-year-old karaoke singer of My Way was shot dead as he sang the tune, allegedly by the bar's security guard, who was arrested after the incidents. And it says the guard complained the young man's rendition was off key, and the victim refused to stop singing. So the guard pulled out a 38 caliber pistol and shot the man dead.
Good thing he wasn't a bouncer at Peabody's. My God.
Right.
How many people would have been dead?
All of them.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it says like some Filipinos, even those who love the song, will not sing it in public in order to avoid trouble. And as of 2007, it had been taken off playlists of karaoke machines in many bars. Reuters in 2007 reports the My Way killing phenomenon had started a few years before, and it says Filipinos who can afford to do so often get private rooms at karaoke bars, just so that kind of shit doesn't happen.
Weird.
Yeah. Super fucking weird. But
well,
evidently, if you kind of look more into it, like that's not for that song specifically, but evidently karaoke killings is not that uncommon of a thing in multiple parts of the world. Evidently, a lot of people, they take their... Oh, go ahead.
To be clear, we're talking about the Limp Bizkit song, right?
No, we're actually not.
We're talking about old blue eyes there,
Frank
buddy.
Sinatra. The old brown eye.
Brown eye.
But yeah, it says like in all different areas, like let's see, in Thailand, a man was arrested on charges that he shot to death 8 neighbors, one of whom was his brother-in-law, in a dispute stemming from several karaoke offerings, including a rendition of John Denver's "Take Me Home." And then in 2013, an American was stabbed to death for refusing to stop singing in Thailand. In China, a fight occurred over the microphone at a karaoke parlor, and a man hacked 2 others to death with a meat cleaver. Like, they take this shit pretty fucking seriously.
Wow.
I've heard some bad karaoke before, but never bad enough to make me want to murder somebody.
Right?
Maybe you're just not taking it serious enough.
Yeah. No fucking amateurs, Pat.
The Dunham Inn Tavern.
I went up there to watch you do karaoke the one night.
Where?
Me?
Who?
Yeah.
Who?
When you were Pat.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I did do karaoke there one night. I did not get murdered, thankfully.
Yes. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here tonight with us.
Yeah, I probably should have been, but I wasn't.
That's crazy. Any other instances of this, Buddha?
There was one more in... Where was it? Oh, I just closed out that page.
Oh.
Yeah, there's like a ton of them just listed, and it's everywhere. Like Seattle was one of them, Thailand, China, obviously the Philippines, Japan. Like it seems to be more so for whatever reason in the Asian countries. I know that's a very broad category, but I guess it would be Eastern Asia. I don't know. I don't want to like blanket statement anything, but not so much in America, which is kind of weird because Americans are generally pretty hot-headed.
Right.
Yeah, but I feel like karaoke in America is like a drunken sport, so it doesn't matter whether you're good or bad. Like, as long as you're drinking booze and having a good time, nobody really complains.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. I had this one last one I had here tonight. And we had kind of talked about it the last show, but we were talking about reincarnation, and so I pulled up a couple of stories of people that had claimed to be reincarnated. And I think, who was it, last week, Buddha, or the week before, where we talked about like young kids being able to see ghosts or talk stories of reincarnation. I think that was
last week.
Yeah. And so here's one. It says, and this is off of Ranker.com. Ranker. A Chicago fire victim was reincarnated as a 5-year-old boy. It says, at first, Erica Ruhlman laughed off her 5-year-old son Luke's odd tendency to call toys objects. Pam. She was also unconcerned by his comments about having been once a girl. He would say that he had black hair when he was a girl, or that he wore the same earrings as his mom when he was a girl. Out of curiosity, Erica eventually asked Luke who Pam was. And he said, I was. Well, I used to be, but I died and went up to heaven. I saw God, and then eventually God pushed me back down, and when I woke up, I was a baby, and you named me Luke. After pressing him for more details, Luke told his mother that he lived in Chicago, took the train a lot, and died in a fire. After mentioning his death, Luke made a hand motion indicating someone jumping out of a window. When Erica punched in the information into a search engine, she discovered a news story about a fire in the Paxton Hotel in Chicago. In March of 1993, 19 people died in a fire at the building, and a woman, Pam Robinson, perished when she jumped out of a window. Erica couldn't explain how Luke would have known about a fire in Chicago. He had never been to the city, and she never discussed it with him. While the haunting story of Pam Robinson could be a coincidence, it was enough to make Erica believe. So, again, it's just, I'm baffled by these stories where these kids will give high detailed accounts of somebody else's life or someone that died. And I'm just blown away by these stories.
That's not really that high a detail, though. If you think about, like, you know, the city of Chicago, how many million people live in the greater Chicago area? Number one. Number two, you know, there's probably quite a few of them named Pam, and there's probably quite a few of them who take the train pretty regularly, as that's a pretty common mode of transportation in the city.
Not when we went.
Man, don't.
That was a cold weekend there, sir.
I ended up riding one of those bikes like 6 miles just to get to that convention center.
I remember that.
I was all sweaty by the time I got there. But anyways, yeah, you got to figure there's lots of fires in Chicago. There's lots of people named Pam in Chicago. There's lots of people who take the train in Chicago. And, you know, I guess my take on that would be kid makes up a story, and the story just so happens to have a hit when you type it in Google. I don't know. I think that sounds pretty coincidental to me. It's like the mediums, the psychics, when they just basically fish for information, but rather than fishing, the kid just threw the story out there, and it just so happened to be something that had occurred.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Let me read you another one here. It says a 6-year-old claimed to be the reincarnation of a nearby family man. At the age of 1.5, Nazia al-Danaf of Lebanon, hold on one second, shocked his parents. He declared, "I am not small, I am big." He insisted he had many weapons, including grenades, and lived in a nearby village. As time went on, he continuously requested to be taken to his old home in, oh boy, I can't even pronounce that, about 10 miles away from his village. When he was 6 years old, his parents granted the wish and requested to take Al-Danaf, located in, some of these things. Let's see.
Just skip over the names. We get it. It's a Middle Eastern
Yeah, but I mean,
country.
but okay. So he was taken to Nadia's Karaj's home. This person then spoke with the youngster at length and became convinced that he was a reincarnation of her husband, Fuad Asad Karaj. She was astounded when Al-Danaf answered her questions correctly. He remembered who built the foundation of their home, the specifics of an accident when she dislocated her shoulder, and an incident when the daughters became ill by ingesting medicine. What's even more astonishing, Al-Danaf's father, alleged former wife, invited him into her home. He quickly ran to a cupboard in search of his weapons, the exact cupboard where her deceased husband had kept his guns and grenades.
Well, first of all, let's talk about how that's really bad parenting if your kid says that he's a reincarnated terrorist and you take him to his old stronghold.
Right.
But, I mean, what is it? I think it's the first law of thermodynamics or the third law of thermodynamics that, you know, energy is neither conserved nor destroyed. So if you look at a human soul as, you know, a form of energy, that it would make sense, but you would think it would be dispersed back into the cosmos and reformed as some other form of matter. But what the hell do I know?
You're just a scientist.
At the same time, though, if you think about it, like to Pat's first comment, it's fairly coincidental that you're in an area where there is high activity of gunfights and all that stuff. I mean, I feel like you could throw a rock and, you know, find somebody that's connected to something. I mean, look at, it made the news yesterday. I think the president of Afghanistan, they were in the middle of some sort of prayer service that is like kind of like, I don't know, Christmas, something that happens regularly, like Ramadan, whatever. And they were being attacked in the middle of it. So, I mean, how hard would it be for a kid to be like, oh, I lived, 10 miles away in this house, and, there were guns and grenades in the house. I feel that's just something normal in that area.
Well, I mean, like I said, everyone can have their opinion on it. I got one more here I thought that was kind of interesting. It says, John and Florence Pollock were devastated when their twin daughters, Joanna and Jacqueline, died in a car accident on May 5th, 1957. The following year, they were thrilled to hear that they were expecting, and once again, Florence was carrying twins. The twins, Jillian and Jennifer, were born identical except for Jennifer's birthmarks. She had a birthmark on her waist similar to the birthmark Jacqueline had, and a birthmark on her forehead that resembled one of Jacqueline's scars. John and Florence moved away from their old home when their daughters were 3 months old. John and Florence told Jillian and Jennifer very little about their late sisters, but the girls seemed to share Joanna and Jacqueline's memories. They would request old toys that had belonged to their deceased twins, recognize landmarks when traveling to their parents from their former home, and were inexplicably terrified of cars. Upon seeing oncoming traffic, they would shriek, "The car's coming to get us." Luckily, by the age of 5, these frightening memories faded away, and these girls went on to live relatively normal adult lives. However, their stories frequently cited it as evidence of reincarnation.
Some birthmarks are genetic. The other parts I can't really explain, but there is some genetic connection for certain birthmarks.
How does that work?
Well, hold on. Let me. We'll circle back to that. Give me one more. I got one more here that's actually kind of interesting. In 2009, at the age of 4, Ryan Hammonds began waking up, clutching his chest, and screaming about how his heart exploded in Hollywood. His mother, Cindy, became intrigued when Ryan revealed more details from his former life. He insisted that he once lived in a house in Hollywood on a street with the name Rock, where he had 3 sons and a friend named Senator Fives. One day, Cindy was going through a book featuring photos from old Hollywood. Ryan peeked over his shoulder and excitedly identified one man as George and another as himself. Cindy contacted the psychiatrist from the UVA Medical Center who conducts research on reincarnation. The psychiatrist verified the man in the photo was film star George Raft, and the other was Martin Martin. First name spelled Martin, last name spelled Martyn, who died in 1964. Upon contacting Martin's daughter, she confirmed that Martin was a Hollywood agent, lived on North Roxbury Drive, had 3 sons, and once met with New York Senator Irving Ives. After meeting with Martin's daughter, Ryan lost interest in his Hollywood memories. He was standoffish at the meeting and told his mother afterwards his daughter's energy had changed. The psychiatrist's explanation: upon seeing people from their past, have moved on, reincarnated children gain closure and forget their former existences. So, another interesting one there. But yeah, Pat, what were you saying about the birthmarks?
That's all I had. I don't know how that works. I think that's what Buddha asked, is how genetic birthmarks work, and I don't know. I just know that some can be genetic.
Speaking of to that and to this whole ideal of reincarnation, Missy and I were having a conversation about this, and the study of like memories and personality being locked into DNA, and they're just now kind of like discovering that those things are transferable to future generations. So, for instance, if you had a traumatizing experience that you don't talk about and you internalize it, it obviously begins to weigh on the body and the mind and stuff, and changes DNA, and it carries into it. And then, say if you're a woman, had something bad happen to you, and you then have a child, that child has the potentiality of carrying on hereditarily, like either memories or personality traits that they then begin to develop and reflect upon. It's super interesting, and one of our psychiatrist friends had said, like, confirmed that it is becoming more apparent that our personalities are ingrained in our DNA.
Yeah, and to that point, like there's an element of I guess the trauma that the mother experienced being I guess relayed to the child. It's kind of like a nature versus nurture thing, but to your point though, there is evidence that like trauma is handed down through generations, and there's no idea for the reason, no idea about the mechanism as to why that occurs. And that is a really interesting topic. And there's so much redundancy and so much like DNA in our bodies that we just have absolutely no idea what it does. So that I think that is not really all that far-fetched to consider that memories could potentially be hereditary.
Yeah, that's crazy to think.
And yeah, I mean, you think about, like Pat just said, the notion of what these redundancies are. Imagine if a family member, very simply swapped DNA with somebody, and it becomes into the body. I mean, anything is possible, because like mapping the human genome is still, like, there's so much potential to that science that you think about, like, with our grandpa, like in World War II and all that stuff, like what he saw, passed on to dad, to us, like, you wonder what that reflection upon all of us could mean, based on what he saw and how we interpret things similarly now.
Yeah. Never even thought about that. And
Yeah,
I mean, that could go on for ages and ages.
that's actually like a really fascinating topic, because of the fact that they talk about just your own experiences shaping your personality or just how you interact with society. But if you came from, multiple generations that, not necessarily saying that they had like a ton of negative experiences or were stressed or abused, but if they were, does that mean like right out of the gate, you're going to be like extremely aggressive, or, just like any one of those, I guess, like societal defects that you could have? Like, that's really weird to think that you could have zero control over what's actually happening if it's kind of starts your blank slate is already leaning one way.
And that's, I think, a question of nature versus nurture once again, where, if you're saying is a kid going to be more predisposed to aggression if he has aggressive parents, but when you consider, like, the way that the kid was raised, where do kids learn from? They learn from their parents. So, of course their behaviors are going to mimic to a large degree, but I'd be interested to see what would happen in a situation where a kid doesn't necessarily, like, say, for example, their dad is super aggressive, but he's in jail, and their mom died, and they're raised in a foster home. And I think that was actually the case. One of the famous serial killers, I think, maybe Jeffrey Dahmer, was raised by foster parents. And
I think
he had real parents that raised him.
Who was the serial killer raised by foster parents that were, by all accounts, really good people, and he just ended up being a serial killer anyways?
I mean, Dahmer's parents were genuinely good people, and in interviews that they've had with him, both with his parents and him, like his parents knew that he was always a little bit.
Berkowitz, Bundy.
What's that?
A lot of them were a lot of these were adopted. David Berkowitz, Ted Bundy, Eileen Wuornos, Joel Rifkin, and the Boston Strangler were a handful of prominent serial murderers who also happened to be adoptees.
But then you also have to wonder how the impact of, I don't know, I guess we don't really know all of their background and what they experienced when they were going through the foster system. So I don't know. I think that it's the age-old question of nature versus nurture. Is it due to the way you were born, or is it due to, the environment that you were raised in, the people that you learned from?
Right.
Well, hasn't it already been proven too, though, with like situations like addicts and people who abuse alcohol and stuff um, that if you have a kid and you are predisposed to any sort of addiction, um, that child carries that same genome that has the ability to be addicted to substance. And again, it plays into your thing. I mean, I guess it can be full circle. You may start with that predisposition, but depending on your life choices and the knowledge of it, you could potentially overcome it because you know that you could potentially become an addict, and you remove yourself from the equation. And
I also wonder what type of impact those substances have on your DNA. There's got to be some kind of modification to DNA when you're putting these substances into your body that might, end up impacting the genes that you hand down to your kid, making them more predisposed to it. I don't. That's not based on anything other than conjecture, but just a thought.
oh yeah, I mean, I'd have to imagine that like an increased use of any substance like will affect it. I mean, heart disease comes natural, but you can push it with smoking and like any sort of like bad eating habits and stuff. It's one of those things that then gets carried on generation to generation, and that's why medical history is so important. That if a doctor says anybody in your family suffer strokes, heart attacks, they can better diagnose what the potentiality of your longevity would be.
Yeah.
I feel like when you kind of get into, like, I can understand essentially shaping, like, how we had talked about just from prior experiences, but I feel like passing down memories is really a stretch. And I personally feel that, like, nurture has much more of an effect than nature does, because, I mean, how many people have you met that are like, I refuse to drink alcohol because, my dad was a raging alcoholic and I don't want to be like that. Like, that's the environment you grew up in. You saw the effects of it. You saw the outcome and you're like, I want nothing to do with it. That's 100% nurture. It's not like you woke up one day and you're like, I will never ever drink alcohol because it's bad. I don't know.
But in that case, you're talking about somebody that still has that predisposition to addiction. It's just that they don't ever get that little, that seed planted to begin the addictive behavior because they've seen how self-destructive it could be for a parent. Now, that's not a disagreement to your point. It's in that case, it is making a decision based on how you were raised. But that person may decide to never drink alcohol, but if they did decide to drink alcohol, they'd be more likely to get addicted than somebody that doesn't have that family history of addiction.
No, I totally agree. I think that also just kind of proves the point that I was making, is that nurture is more powerful than nature. Because of being in that situation or being around that situation, you've made the conscious choice. You were nurtured into that choice to say that's bad.
Yeah.
But to that same statement, and back to like the comments of like trauma and personality traits being like they're finding that they are hereditary, if you can nurture someone's natural instinct to like avoid something, because obviously if a parent, that was like heavily addicted to something, and was able to recover and get their life back on track, like that sentiment and willpower is obviously being transferred to the child. So you mix that, personality trait that's hereditary along with the genetics of like having an addictive personality, and someone saying like, well, I've done this, and this is how I came out of it. Like, you can make the choice to do what you want with your life, but you have the potentiality of being that. And that, I agree with you, the nurturing in that situation would take a larger effect. But to Pat's point, yeah, like the genetic disposition is already a hindrance from the start.
But I guess
also, go on.
At what point does it change in the DNA that would be considered the donor DNA? You know what I mean? Like if you start off in the I was passed this from my parents, this is my predisposition, but then you go on to the idea of, well, if you decide to change, you know, just for instance, since we've been talking about like the addiction thing, you know, your parent was an addict, your grandparent was an addict, and their parent was an addict, so you're predisposed to be an addict, and then throughout your life, whether it's for whatever reason you decide not to, or you become an addict and then change, like at what point is that written out of the donor's DNA, or is it still carried on even though they've decided to change? Or does it need to be weeded out through generations?
I would think it would have to be through generations. I mean, your body's going to change, and you know how everyone gets old, you know, their physical being is going to ultimately determine what substances and things they put in their body. I mean, look at how you are with gluten. You know, you don't know if other family members had that, but I would think, like, to the point, if you have children, there would be a high potentiality right now that your kid may be allergic to gluten and like have issues with it. But if they stay away from it long enough, they may build back up resiliency like longer down your lineage.
Well, no, I can actually give an actual answer for this. It's all genetic variation. If my dad has heart disease and my grandpa has heart disease and his dad had heart disease, I have heart disease. Even if I decide, I'm sorry, I don't have heart disease. I'm more inclined towards heart disease, even if I decide to maintain a low-fat diet and exercise all the time and be healthy and not smoke and do all of these things that's good for heart health. My
Not have
child
any
is
fun.
still gonna, yeah, not have any fun. My child is still going to have high potential for having heart disease. It's genetic variation. It's when you introduce new genes. You marry somebody that doesn't have heart disease in their family history, and then, you know, the kids are less likely, and then, you know, they marry somebody that doesn't have heart disease. So it's something that has to get diluted throughout generations. But, you know, when it comes to heart disease, I'm not sure about addiction, but when it comes to heart disease, that's absolutely something that stays with you, even if you make life choices that counteract that.
Interesting.
I think that's kind of a different example though, because that's I would think like addiction is like, yeah, you may have an addictive personality, but it's also still like a choice-based thing, whereas like heart disease, like you were saying, like you kind of have it, like it's already there, you know.
But that's what I'm saying about addiction too, is you have it, it's there, it's how you decide to interact with your environment. You decide not to use alcohol or whatever because you know that you have a family history of addiction. However, if you have kids, they're still going to have that family history of addiction, even though you never touched alcohol in your life. And it's just going to have to be something that gets diluted, because addiction is something that has been linked to heredity.
We just need to
interesting.
get to the point of Gattaca, sweet Ethan Hawke, and we're shaving off skin cells to
There you
be able
go.
to get on the rocket. Gattaca, Gattaca.
Swim out in the ocean or whatever. That's the only scene I remember is the end when they're racing.
So let me ask you this then, Pat, since this is actually kind of interesting and it kind of hits home for me. So my dad died of an aneurysm, and my dad's dad died of an aneurysm, and his dad died of an aneurysm, and my brother's already had an aneurysm. So
Which brother?
I mean, clearly that is hereditary for me, and they not Gibby, obviously.
Yeah.
So obviously it's already hereditary for me, and they told me, you know, when you get around 40, you have to start getting like regular scans just to, you know, make sure I'm good, just because like all the men in my family clearly just die of that. My brother didn't die from it. They caught it and they were able to take care of it, but it's just kind of proving the point. So in order like for that to essentially be diluted, like you're saying, it would, at least for my lineage, it would have to be like, you know, me and Natalie have a kid and it's a boy, and then that boy has to marry somebody else and hopefully have no issues, and then have another boy, and then like, because the women don't seem to, well, my family is like, they don't produce women. There was like 2 or 3 and the rest of them are all men. But just the point being that, I guess, like, how many generations, if it's actually been measured, how many generations does it need to be diluted before it becomes less of an issue?
I don't know a solid answer for that, but I would guess that it would vary depending on whatever the disease is, and you know how strong that predisposition is to it. You know, if it's a
apparently
if
it's pretty fucking
dominant,
strong.
Yeah, and if it's a dominant gene, then you know it's gonna take I feel like that would be something. I'd have to go look back and look at my high school biology Punnett squares. But, I would think if it's a dominant gene, you know, even if Natalie doesn't necessarily have that genetic predisposition to aneurysms, if it's a dominant gene, there's still a good likelihood that you could pass it down to your kids. But over time, that would become more and more diluted. But I would think even like, you know, 30 generations from now, if you continue to have offspring with people that don't have that predisposition to aneurysms, you know, there would still be somewhere down your genetic history, there would still be a small likelihood that could pop up and start the whole cycle over again. I have no idea, though. Genetics is not my strong suit.
Thought you were a scientist, man.
Yeah, I'm an immunologist.
Anyway.
All right, gentlemen. It is 9:42 in the PM. So I think it's time to land this plane for this week. That's fascinating. I mean, we went from reincarnation to genome talk. Interesting. But all right.
It's all the rage these days.
Yeah. Well, Al, Pat, thank you for donating your Thursday night over to us.
More than happy. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Thank you, and we'll probably be on PS5 here in a few minutes.
I think so. Buddha's gonna have to get a PS5.
I'm still holding out.
Yeah. I just got lucky. That's all. They entered me into a lottery. So, all right. Well, for Dan Rady, Steve Gibson, Alex Badzinski, Pat Barrett, Nick Riddle. Who else am I missing? I'm missing a lot of people.
Literally
Gary
everybody
Nagel,
else.
Yeah, I know. Everybody. You know what? The entire population has filled in the Rady chair, which we should be coming up on an end to this here pretty soon. I think another month or so, and then Dan will be back in the saddle again, giving us all the Danisms. So, for the mistake on the lake, this is Type 3 TV. Say goodnight, Buddha.
Good night, Buddha.